Welcome to Life in the Bricks podcast, where we talk to real people about programs that enhance our community so that we can build bigger and better portfolios while providing options for our residents to achieve self-sufficiency. I'm your host, Tony McGinnis, Executive Director, CEO with the Huntsville Housing Authority. Welcome to another episode of Life in the Bricks podcast, where we talk to real people who are doing great things in the community that impact our community in a great way. I'm excited to talk to our guest today. I guess we'll just label this episode "Show Me the Money," because that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to learn about the money behind the housing authority, and couldn't think of a better person to talk to us than our CFO of the Huntsville Housing Authority, Miss Teresa Wade Chase. Teresa, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here.
Good. So Teresa, tell us, how long have you been working at the Huntsville Housing Authority?
I've had the opportunity to be at the Huntsville Housing Authority for 27 years. That's the only position I've had since we moved here from St. Louis, Missouri. My husband and I, we came with our new baby, who was a month old when we moved here with the BRAC move out of St. Louis, Missouri. So I've had the opportunity to serve for 27 years, and I've been the CFO for the past 5 years.
Awesome. So how long have you been in this industry?
I am fortunate to have started at a company at Edison Brothers Stores as an accounting clerk, and I've only had one job, and that's accounting. I loved accounting since I was a senior in high school. Had a project that I completed, fell in love with accounting, and so it's the opportunity I've had to do what I love to do for ever since I graduated in 1980 some time ago.
Awesome. So a veteran in the game. So let me ask you this question. What made this a good fit here at the Huntsville Housing Authority?
The Huntsville Housing Authority is a good fit for me. It was the only job I applied for when we came from St. Louis, Missouri. So the job works for me because, one, it is a job where I'm able to give back to our residents. Even though I don't have the opportunity to be in front of the residents, my role here is to make sure our finances are at tip-top shape, at A+, so that we can get optimizing funding from HUD for our program. So that's why it's a good fit for me. We are about family, and my family is important to me. And also, we're serving families. And so by being able to serve in this role, I'm able to serve all of our families as the financial person. So that's what makes HHA a good fit for me. We're making a difference.
So you talked about this being a good fit because it's about service, right? So when we think about that, I think about how, as a housing authority, a lot of people don't necessarily get to see the people behind the scenes. But like every great organization, you have people that might not be up front who definitely have a large role. And with the Housing Authority of Huntsville being a large housing authority, the finances have to be in order. If not, then you can have all kind of problems. So it's good to know that you take on a servant role at the housing authority, because that's what housing authorities across the country need, is good financial management. And we have a great team on your team, and you're a great leader when it comes to making sure that we are a sound organization financially. So we definitely appreciate that. So since you've been in the game for a while now, and you've seen some trends, what are some of the things that are different now than when you first started?
Well, what's different now is, there's so many changes that have taken place. Our funding levels, they vary from year to year. So this year we began a proration level of 87%. So the way I explain it to everyone within the organization, HUD may owe you $1, but they say we're only going to give you 87 cents on that dollar. And we're supposed to take that same dollar and service as many people as we have in the past. So that presents a challenge to us, a proration does. But we also have some great programs where we have continued to get funded, like with our Ross FSS program, that allows us to service our residents. But what we have to realize is that we compete for those grants every year or every 2 years, depending on what the notice of funding says. So we have been successful in competition to obtain those grants. And when we obtain those grants, we're able to provide service to our residents and also to have staff that can service our residents. The best grant or the latest grant we have right now is the Youth Build Grant, which makes such an impact and a difference in the community for our youth. So that is a new exciting program, a new funding level for us that we're able to offer our services to our youngest residents within our area and across Madison County. So that's one thing that I have seen change and since I've been here is being allowed to compete for grants, to secure those grants, and to have more funding for opportunities that we want to give our residents and the community. So that's the most exciting thing to me.
When you talk about funding, and you said, okay, if somebody owes you $1, but they only going to give you 87 cents, so you're planning for $1, and all of a sudden you get 87. Things become tight, and so then you have to make adjustments, and then things still are a little off because you plan for 87 and you get 80. So how important is it for housing authorities across the country, even this housing authority, to start looking at their budgets and just really looking at how you can operate a little leaner, because you still have the residents that you have to take care of. You don't just say you're getting 87 cents, but you have the same amount of residents. So how has that impacted housing, do you think?
Well, we've been impacted. We don't want to, one, we don't want to lay anybody off. We don't want to have a layoff with our employees because we need each one of those employees to service our residents, especially when it comes to our housing stock, which requires more maintenance because our buildings are aging. We also look to be good stewards of our dollars in looking at how we can streamline costs, how we can save in the purchases that we make to be able to service our residents. We have to look at maybe some benefits and we might have to make some changes there. So that's where our challenge comes to be able to take those same dollars that we have and use them in the best way that we can. And we also try to look at our processes that we complete to see where we can streamline and pull back and save in the things that we do. We don't want to decrease our service or what we give to our residents. We just need to be smarter and cleaner about how we use those dollars when we get them and use them to the best of our ability. So that's what we try to do here is to make sure that we are spending HUD dollars correctly, that we're being, that not thrifty is the word, but we're being money conscious about how we spend the funds that we receive.
Before I ask this question I have down here, we talked about funding. How important is it for the resident to do their part of paying their rent so we don't have a lot of collections, because that's a part of funding, right? So as a housing authority, we're challenged to make sure that we do what we're supposed to do. How critical is that funding piece when it comes down to rent payment?
Yes, we want our residents to pay their rent. One thing that really we have to keep in mind, if a resident decides not to pay rent, then we have to go through a process where they may not be able to keep their home. But that also increased our costs because then there are legal fees that we have to incur to be able to move forward with eviction, and that is definitely not our goal. We want our residents to pay their rent because we need them. We need those dollars also to be able to service them, to service their units, so that we all have to work together in this picture to understand we're there to provide a service. They agreed when they signed the lease that they would pay the rent. And so once the rent is paid, we're able to bring that money in and use it to be able to service them. Because what we're doing is taking those rent dollars and we are reinvesting into the property, into the residents. And we're glad to have them be a part of the community. And we don't want them to lose their home.
Awesome. So we talked about rent collection. How else is housing authority, well, particularly this housing authority, funded?
Okay, our housing authority has, we won our, the number one source of our funding is operating subsidy. So that is based off of the number of units that we have in within our portfolio. And it's a very detailed computation computed by HUD by the information we provide them as what of our expenses are, what our utility expenses are. And so we provide that information on a platform, and then there's a computation that happens that tells us how much operating subsidy we're going to get. HUD also provides capital fund dollars that will allow us to reinvest back into our communities to be able to service the property. Like LR Patton, the modernization we completed there, that was based off of capital funds that we received. So we received those funds. We also receive with Section 8, their funding is based off of two things. HUD funds us for the housing assistance payments, but they also give us administrative dollars to run those programs. Those dollars for administration in the HCV program are also prorated from HUD also, and they are at a 90% proration rate at this present time. I also mentioned that we get the capital, not the capital fund. We also have competitive capital funds that we also get from HUD, where we got $1 million in funding for lead-based paint. We've also been funded for a carbon monoxide grant for installing those units. We spent $228,000 of those funds that we have. We also are funded with HUD for our Shelter Plus grant, which we are in partnership with Wellstone, which that grant also funded for HAP payments of about $230,000. So we received several different pots of money from HUD for the different programs that we run at this agency. And so that's how we're funded. That's how we get our money. We also have a nonprofit, Huntsville Partners and Associates now, that has been established, which is a nonprofit arm for us to be able to receive funding or donation from our partners that would like to assist us. And that nonprofit has been established to assist residents. And so that is what that is for. The arm of HUD that we operate on an everyday basis is for us to provide housing in the within our developments, and also with our HCV program, which we have over 2,000 vouchers at this present time within the area, in the Huntsville area.
So you talked about the different pots that we have to, one, provide housing and to assist residents. I want to kind of go back to the capital fund, because I know sometimes people think, okay, how do you keep your housing stock maintenance or maintained? And so talk a little bit more about the capital fund. And it's kind of one of those things where, okay, is it enough to sustain? We talk about, okay, you getting money to make the repairs, but when you have older buildings, how does that affect the capital fund? And have you seen a increase or decrease over the years in capital fund?
The capital fund for 2023 was about $5.2 million. And with that, the capital fund works like this. You have a 5-year plan where you decide these are the items that we want to work on within the development. And then within that, we send that to HUD, they approve it, and then they award our capital fund year by year. So in the capital fund grant, we did the modernization that spanned over 3 capital funds that we utilized that for. We had capital fund money for appliances that we bought for Cersei Homes. We now have a capital fund project where we're putting new roofs on at Northwoods. We just finished putting roofs on at Lincoln Park. So that is how we're able to sustain our capital fund dollars. Of course, those dollars don't cover every particular thing that we need, but we are an agency that plans and we try to look ahead to see what major systems are going to need repairs. Also, our capital fund program, we were able to work with Huntsville Utilities that allowed us to provide AC units within our agency for different developments for the last 3 years. So that is how our capital funds are used to take care of major systems that are within our portfolio that we need to address.
Have you seen a change? Is the money that you need for the capital fund sufficient?
No, it is not. It's not sufficient. Um, it depends on funding is dependent on HUD and Congress. Really, it's Congress that the House and the Senate, they decide how we're going to be funded and how much we will be funded. And so therefore, to give you an example, is as I look at this spreadsheet for let me see, like the 2019 capital fund budget was 4.1 million. 2022 was 4.3. The increases are small, 4.5 for 2021. And in 2022, we had a large jump to 5.6. So the years of funding increases and decreases based on how Congress will fund us. There is a report that is coming out that capital fund will be decreased for the 2025 funding period. So we will be looking at a decrease of the capital fund dollars that we probably will receive.
When you start looking at capital fund decreasing, needs increasing, then you can kind of see the dilemma that not only this housing authority is in, but housing authorities across the country, because we're still operating with the same amount of people and units, but the way we take care of those units, we're getting less and less money to do that. So that creates a serious challenge, not only here at this housing authority, but for housing authorities across the country. And so one of the things that we here have to tip our hat on is that, even though our capital fund has been depleted or the numbers go down, we've been able to still be, for most years, a high performing agency. And then we've also been a standard. And I think that's important because a housing authority our size, it could be easy for us to just kind of lose control. But again, a sound financial department helps us keep things in line. So it helps us to really be able to take care of these units in a way that most housing authorities wouldn't be able to sustain. And I'll tell you, we have some very old units, but when people see our units on the outside, they see some of the grounds that we have. We do the best job that we can to make our units look presentable. And even though they're old, we do all we can to make sure that they're still livable. And I'm excited because, we're getting a boost in one of our neighborhoods. We just got awarded a Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant, which is going to totally change the game for the Butler Terrace community, Johnson Towers communities, because now we'll be able to partner with the city of Huntsville, McCormick Barron, Salvager, MBS, and Urban Strategies to really build out something that is going to be unique. And although we in that neighborhood are not going to have to deal with the capital fund anymore, it's going to help us because we're going to have new units on the ground. And these new units are going to be representative of the market. And it's going to give us an opportunity to have a corner of the neighborhood that looks like every other part of the city. A lot of times you ride around the neighborhoods throughout the country, you know where public housing is because it's the traditional red brick. And so this neighborhood is going to look different than that. And so again, when we talk about capital funds, we do all we can to upkeep. I once heard somebody say that the housing authority needs to take care of the property that we have and not worry about branching out and doing something new. But I read something that over the last 10 years we spent about close to 10 to 15 million dollars on just upgrading and keeping our facilities in good standing. So the other part that I want to talk about real quickly is we talked about the capital fund. We talking about the importance of the tenants paying their rent. But I want to talk about how the community can get involved because that's a serious part as well. Now, the housing authority's mission is to house residents, and make sure that we have decent, safe, sanitary housing. But at the same time, some housing authorities, and we happen to be one of those, that help in providing supportive services. Not all housing authorities do that. So explain how individuals or companies can get involved in helping us provide services to our residents.
Well, the one way partners can help us is one, they can give to the Huntsville Partners and Associates, the nonprofit. We would definitely appreciate the donations. Also, I believe that there are other partners that we have worked with that provide education for our residents. And also, like in finances, if you teach a class about accounting or independence, or, the thing that the residents need to be able to improve their skills. I mean, I believe the partnerships we have with Calhoun, with Drake, with the YMCA, all of those entities that we have those resources with, they have been a great partner to us and they provide great services. And so, therefore, we need those people, but we also need the dollars. If we have the dollars, then we could, the dream would be to put, help people start businesses that they want to start. I know we have a partnership with CNI Solutions that we send residents to teach them about business. I think that once we teach someone a skill, and I know that we're going to be working with Drake for our residents and for their parents, when we teach, when you learn a skill, then you're able to provide for yourself and you're able to add more back to the community and give to the community. So in that way, the partnerships that we have, they have been great and they improve the lives of our residents, and it works. It's, to me, it's a full circle effect. We've provided the housing, our outside partners come along and they lift and bring the skills and the information we need. And then we have funds in our nonprofit, then we can reinvest that back into the residents that we have within our communities.
Awesome, awesome. So what we have to understand as a community, there's ways for you to give back. And so the Huntsville Partners and Associates allows you an opportunity to make an investment. Some of the things that we've been able to do here lately over the last couple of years is, again, we've been able to provide job training for children, having some programs, and we were able to do that through the nonprofit arm of our organization. So I'm excited about that. And so again, if you want to get involved with the housing authority, that's definitely one of the ways to do that. Before we go, I mean, this has been very rich, and I just want to ask: is there anything you would like to share that individuals in the community might not be aware of when it comes to finance and how housing authorities are run that we didn't talk about?
Wow, thought we talked about all those pieces that support the housing authority. I think the one thing I would like to make clear is that um, the understanding that the housing authority is a quasi government agency. And when I say that, I mean that we're chartered by the state, but we're funded by the federal government, and that's what makes us a quasi government agency. So therefore, our funding for to run the housing authority is government funded. And I just would like to say it's important for you to be involved in any area of government that you can be in, because the government is the one that supplies the funds that we need. So we need to understand what is going on. I think all of us need to be aware of our surroundings, who we have for our elected officials, to make sure that they encompass every part of Huntsville in the decisions that they make, because they do affect everyone, including our residents. And I also think if you are a business owner and you would like to, I may be out of my purview because I don't do this part, but like to partner with our service, with our resident services department, to provide some type of training or insight and open our eyes up to different types of professions that we may not know about. As far as like as accounting is concerned, there are all different types of level. I'm a CFO, but there's also other areas of accounting that are accounts payable, accounts receivable. There are positions within banks and other industries. You're always going to need an accountant. I don't care what organization you run. And it is a great skill to have. And a business cannot run without accounting. That's the bottom line. You want to make sure assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity every day. So if you're a business owner and you have a business that you could teach others how to do, to introduce us to, that would be great. I mean, I know there are doctors and lawyers, but there are also day-to-day jobs that have to be completed, that if you can invest in our residents and open up their eyes. Because if I had never taken that one accounting class that came with a project to teach me from A to Z what an accountant does, then I would have never found my passion and my love of what I do.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. This has been great. It really has. It one thing that well, there's a couple of things that I want to take away from this conversation today. Is one, our finances are being managed very strategically, especially based on the mandates. We are very a highly regulated organization, and we can't, be flexible when it comes to the funds that we have. The funds that we have are geared to make sure that we're taking care of the residents that we serve. Again, we do, have an opportunity to raise funds to provide services, but that's not necessarily what we do, fundraising. And so it's great when we have partners who are willing to come to the table and provide services, because we have residents who need those services, who will benefit in a major way. And partnership looks like that. You have two entities who come together and perform a service, and we have those residents. But the one thing that we also have to understand is that we don't have a lot of wiggle room for much of anything. Our funds are pretty much allocated. We know where they're going every month, and those funds are designated to make sure that we can do the best possible job to taking care of these residents that we can. Oftentimes people think about the housing authority and they think there's a big pot of money sitting somewhere. And what you heard today is that there's not, and that everything that we do, the bottom line, the foundation is taking care of the residents. So Teresa, I thank you.
Can I say one more thing? The one thing I would like to say with those regulations, it's called the Code of Federal Regulations, the 2 CFR, and that is in every piece of funding that we receive. And that is the Bible when it comes to us and how we spend federal dollars. Because really, we are the stewards of these dollars that we receive. And they are regulated by the Code of Federal Regulations that is based in every piece of funding that we get, that you sign off on, that you are responsible for. And it is our job here in accounting to make sure we use those funds according to the federal regulations that are stipulated by the United States government. So that just wanted to make that clear, that they tell us what we must do and we follow that process. And we then, after we get done with that, we are audited by an independent firm that comes here on a yearly basis to make sure that we are following those regulations. So yeah, I just want to, that technical side of it. Go ahead.
Well, I mean that's a great way to close it out, because again, people say, the housing authority has this big pot, but we don't. We joked at the beginning saying that this session was going to be show me the money. Well, we showed you the money, but we also showed you that we don't have any once we take care of the business of the housing authority. So this has been good. Hopefully those who listen to this on their social media platforms will understand that we are very good stewards of the money that we receive, and our team does a great job of making sure that we stay compliant and that we stay in the pocket. We stay in an area that keeps us out of trouble, and that's one of the things that we definitely want to continue to do. So, Teresa, thank you for being with us today, and
Thank
we
you.
appreciate all the insight that you were able to bring. Thank you all for joining us today, and this has been a great episode. Again, when you get a chance to look at this and view it, please share it on all your social media platforms. You had an education one-on-one about finances of Huntsville Housing Authority, and so hopefully you'll be able to share this with all the people who think that we're just sitting on a pot of money, but we're not. We have to handle business a certain way. But we definitely appreciate our CFO for coming on and sharing that information with us today. Thank you all, and look forward to seeing you again next time. We've come to the end of the podcast today. Please share the link on all your social media platforms. We hope that you all will join us again next time. Until then, keep serving and keep pushing. This has been another amazing episode of Life in the Bricks podcast. Peace.